My name's Gary Parker. I'm your host for this morning, and I'm joined by my colleague Sybil Mayard, who's going to tell you something about some of the other services that we provide very briefly. And then she's going to go off to another meeting. And but you will have an action-packed hour here. Um, we are going to cover the whole area of public procurement. Just for information, this was co-written with someone who has, in the past 2 or 3 years, managed to secure um, uh, £7 to £9 million in public funding for the organizations that they work for. So, and I'll talk a bit more about other things as well shortly. But let's get going now because we've got quite a few people on already. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sybil Mayard first, just so she can briefly tell you about some of the other services we are providing. So over to you, Sybil.
Thank you, Gary. My name is Sybil, a digital services consultant at C&T Associates. We can provide you with a range of digital services. Firstly, we can help you to set up alerts for tender and grant opportunities. So you'll be notified whenever you receive whenever there are any relevant opportunities. Secondly, website design. So it's very important for you to have a good professional looking website, as especially councils and other funding agencies will certainly be checking out your website. And even if you're on a limited budget, you do need to have some sort of online presence. And a website is a great way to demonstrate credibility. So we're able to design and develop a professional website for you, one that reflects your brand, your services, and we can tailor it exactly to your needs and to your budget. Then thirdly, for other tech and digital related services, we can offer email marketing, CRM, and we have some AI packages as well, which can be tailored to your requirements, and other digital services which are related to the ones that I mentioned. So if you need more information or a quote, then please do contact us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, at info@cntassociates.com. If you just email that address, I'll put it in the chat again later. Okay, then, so let's get going then. This will last up to about an hour, and then there will be time to answer questions either directly or through the chat. So I'm going to share the presentation now. So here we go. I'm just going to have to stop this share for the time being. Just hang on a second. Not quite sure what's happened there. All right, so let's go again. Right, let's start again. Here we go then. I think, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
I
Thank
can,
you.
Gary. Yeah.
Right, there are contact details. Anybody wants to contact us, you can call us, email us, or go via our website. This is just a little bit more about us as a company. C&T have been in business for over 20 years. I'm the director of it. In that time, on the fundraising side, we've raised over £30 million for our clients. And still that figure is still rising. We're based in London and the northwest of England, and we work regularly for many organisations, delivering fundraising, funding research, business support, and we write applications, and we also provide a range of digital services as well. So we're looking at public sector contracts this morning. And that involves tender writing. What does the tender process involve? Each tender process is different depending on the contract in question, the buyer's specific priorities, and the evaluation criteria. The tender stage in the bidding process is where you need to have to be able to detail how you will deliver the contract, including your technical um, services and pricing proposals. This is your opportunity to stand out against your competition and showcase why you're the right organization to deliver it. This is a competitive bidding process. There are a number of criteria. It's not just price, although price, as you'll see, is probably the key factor in this, but it's usually around about 50%. There are other um, elements of this that you will see. But you have to demonstrate as well as on price how the services will be delivered to a high quality. Um, This is where we'll start with basic principles here. And I should just say this is about 42, 43 slides, and there's a lot of information in here. We will be sending uh, um, an abridged version of this out, which is about 12 to 15 slides. But if you want to buy the full version of this, it will cost you £36, including VAT, but there's a lot of information in this, as you will see. This is one of the first things you can use the find the tender services, and you will need to log in to use this service. We also utilize gov.uk contract finder, and then the C&T tender pipeline, in that we offer to monitor tenders, awards, review funding opportunities, and set up regular tender alerts for you. One of the key sites here is this one at the bottom, the London Tender Portal. That is, I think, virtually all London local authorities are signed up to this, and the Greater London Authority and another number of associated agencies, I think, like TfL and others. The London Fire Brigade Service. And if you register for that, you'll be able to get information and sift through a wide range of public sector contract opportunities. So those are just some of the more popular sites that you can use to access tender information. But if you're new to this, start with the London tender portals, although the other two, I would recommend them as well. Um, if you suffer from insomnia, this is the part for you. Reading all this is all the background to it. It has changed in recent years, and just look at in the last 10 years at all the legislation that's come out. I mean, there are links to it if you want to read it. Um, the most recent one was the uh, Public Procurement Act 2023, which became law last year. And I'm going to mention a few things about that. But that's all the background legislation. I'm not going to click through all the links. Otherwise, we would be here for a long time. Um, this is one of the examples about how we can help you. We can help you model your application. We can help you write a funding application. We can research and write a funding research report for you. We can coach you in bid writing and help you produce model applications. We can work in partnership with you or others to write applications. And we can work with you on a draft or application that you've already produced. So there's different ways that we can work with people. Um, these are the recent changes to procurement legislation in recent years. The Procurement Act was introduced in 2025 in England because it's slightly different in Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it covers England and Wales. The main changes to public procurement legislation in 2025 was the introduction of the Procurement Act. This aims to streamline the processes, improve transparency, and enhance efficiency. And this includes some key changes, simplified contract award processes, uh, two main procedures, the open procedure and the competitive flexible procedure, are introduced in place of a range of other more prescriptive um, procedures. Um, and what they're trying to achieve is increase flexibility for contracting authorities. The Act allows contracting authorities, like your local authority, for example, to design their own bespoke awards process for complex procurements. So they do have some flexibility. Um, but the greater the value of the contract, um, the less flexibility there is. I think that's the easiest way of putting it. It's not changed. It's changed significantly, but there are limitations on this. Um, there's also greater emphasis on transparency and accountability. Contract award notices and performance information for suppliers are made public. I'd be very interested to see how many public authorities are actually doing this. Because you can, if you bid for a contract and you didn't get it, somebody else did, you can actually monitor the performance online, although obviously there is a time lag on this. And if a contract starts now, it may be 6 months or more before that information is produced, because obviously the organization has got whoever the delivery agent is has got to have time to do that. But that is what is there these days. Um, sorry, Mike. It's freezing again, and I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. Ah, that's it. Um, here's the Procurement Act 2023. There's enhanced protection of competition, stronger rules on the exclusion of suppliers where they pose risk to public procurement. Um, and it includes a new mandatory exclusion grounds for suppliers involved in cartel activities. and a central register. So that's people who would try to fix the market, as it were. That's usually bigger organizations because small businesses, even if they wanted to, are not usually in a position to do things like that. So, but that was in the Act. Streamline procedures for suppliers, barriers for small businesses, and voluntary and community and social enterprises are removed uh, with strengthened provisions for prompt payment. Um, Earlier supplier engagement. Public bodies are encouraged to share details of upcoming procurement projects uh, with what is known as a pipeline notice. And of course, if you're on London tender portals and a range of others, there are some public notices for these. But if you're registered with one of those portals, they should come up on there. Um, Here are some common tendering terms. Contract notice, notice published announcing a public sector organisation's intends to contract for specific goods or services. An IEO, which is an initial expression of interest. Higher value public sector contracts are advertised via finder tender or contract finder and usually start asking uh, parties interested in bidding to write and express their interest in biddings. Sometimes that's called an EOI, an expression of interest. You have to be careful with them sometimes because they're almost like mini tender. Because this whole process, it's like getting a job. It's not an inclusive process. It's designed to have one organization or a small number of organizations holding these contracts at the end. So you need to study this process quite carefully. And the more you learn about it, the more it will definitely improve your chances. Um, the invitation to tender, the ITT, is a formal communication from a public body or organization to a supplier inviting it to submit a tender. So that is you usually get a bundle of documents, and that's the first one. And then this is another tendering term, meet the most economically advantageous tender. I think that's basically where all things are equal. Then obviously cost is a key issue, but the May funders are always looking for added value in tenders, and particularly the higher you go. So if you can offer anything in addition, then that is always useful. But that's within the existing pricing limitations. There is no additional money for that. So again, that's something you need to be aware of. I'm sorry about this. My don't know why it is freezing. Let's wait for a second. There we go. Before you bid, there are several ways you can do this, including checking the information within the contract notice, um, checking the ITT document that I've just mentioned within the tender pack, and a range of other checks, asking the buyer or authority a clarification question. So, what usually tends to happen now, especially for any contracts probably over about 10 and certainly over £30,000 is they will do it through London tender portals, and there's an opportunity to ask questions. So if there's parts of the tender you're unsure of, they can clarify it. So before you bid, you need to do some analysis. Are there any potential weaknesses in your service solution or competition? sorry, competitor, you if you're aware of who the service delivery organization are, and remember this is all going to go in the public domain now, you could look at what they're delivering. If they're uh, if they're not delivering to the specification of the contract, then there might maybe some room in there for you. Um, if you can find out who the competitors are, that's not always easy though. Have you delivered high quality services to clients in the past? If you have, therefore, gathering your evidence, examples, and client testimonials is key here because you can potentially use them in tenders. Um, Read the whole set of tender documents. Uh, to win a tender, it is essential to understand uh, the scope of the tender and the customer's expectations. Um, Bidders should consider and review the following evidence to prepare a winning bid. The ITT document, the buyer specification, the evaluation criteria, and the clarification question log. That's the one that I've just mentioned, and that's questions from potential suppliers to the people who are assessing the tender. Writing style, again, this is important for any kind of bid or application, really, whether it's a public sector contract or not. You've got to remember there could be a considerable number of tenders, or if you're applying for grants, uh, people applying for those grants. So you've got to have a very clear writing style, which focuses around some key points here, placing the benefits before the the feature in the sentence. So that is the key benefit of whatever you're providing. Keep sentence lengths under 25 words. Writing in Arial, font size 11. They may even direct you on font size because the last tender I wrote, they even had a direction to keep it at Arial 11, unless otherwise requested. You should do that. No long words, jargon, use simple, straightforward language. What we try and do here is we get our colleagues to read applications, and normally they wouldn't know much about them. If they understand it, then I've done my job. If they find it too complex or there's too much jargon in, then it has to be changed. So keep things very clear and simple. Um, Compliance, things to check for. These days, many applications have word limits, whether they're tenders or grants or whatever. Um, they have word counts and page counts, required font size and formatting. You need to check the evaluation criteria. Any policies, evidence, and attachments that are mandatory. So it's going to be certainly things like health and safety policies, but there's a whole range of others. I mean, it does depend what you're bidding for. But say if you're working with vulnerable people, then you will need a safeguarding policy, probably a sustainability policy. These days, other ones like modern slavery, etc., etc. I mean, again, that is another area that CNT helps people with to develop these policies on a customized basis. Um, but it is vital to read the questions carefully and fully understand the specifications, as failure to answer clearly in any section can damage the application. Here's another way you can approach this. When approaching responding to the ITT, the invitation to tender, is impossible. It's important to work collaboratively and plan out and storyboard each response. What does this involve? You need to set out a structure and a content plan for each response. This should be based on addressing every single element of the question alongside the evaluation criteria. The tender will give you guidance on each section on what to focus on. It may even give the actual scoring on that. That's not always the case, but a lot do. This will ensure you know what to do to achieve an excellent response while hitting the compliance criteria for each response. So that's quite an important thing to do. Um, Standard collateral. This is another term. To save time, it might use some standard collateral for common questions that come up in public sector bids. So if you have these prepared already, I've already mentioned one of them, which is health and safety, quality, data protection, equality and diversity. Um, it's important, however, to always tailor generic collateral so that that's the standard um, paragraphs to the buyer's requirements and expectation. You can't just paste it in there. You've got to focus on what the funding agency wants. Focus on whether it really answers the question rather than cutting and pasting it into the document. So you've got to review that quite carefully. Um, Pay attention on the writing, pay attention to key requirements of the service specification and evaluation criteria to focus on, look at each of the key elements of each of the method statements, and use the storyboard structure for your response. Each response will be evaluated separately, so avoid cross-referencing other answers when you can. That may not always be possible, but avoid it as much as you can. Check if any of the method statements allow supplementary support evidence, such as diagrams, policies, and spreadsheets. Some larger contracts want quite a lot of addendums with things like risk management strategies and other elements, but it really depends. If it's a lower value contract, you're probably not going to be asked to provide those. But you certainly will for higher value ones. Make sure your responses are written in plain English and that you proofread to avoid errors and inconsistencies. Because this whole process, it's kind of like horse racing, really. So, if you get your nose in front, you've got a good chance of winning. But the devil is in the detail. You've got to make sure that all the detail is there. So that's why you proofread it and, well, if possible, get other people to go over it, just so you get a separate view wherever possible. If that is possible. There are some other ways to do it. Now, of course, you can use AI, which we're going to look at right at the end. Reviewing. Before you submit your response, we recommend you carry out an in-depth review process. Um, Assign a reviewer, not the writer, ideally someone who understands the technical aspects, to analyze the written responses and provide feedback comments. So if you know somebody, maybe you can partner with some other organization that you work with. Probably not a good idea to do it on the same tender, but if you've got a partner organization that could help you with that, that would be useful. Act as a compliance check, determining that the bid has followed the ITT instructions and the buyer's requirements. Don't take any suggestions to improve answers personally. This is one of the things that we do with some organizations because it saves them money. They'll provide us with a draft application and we will review it and suggest amendments wherever possible. But there's a number of ways you can do this, and it obviously depends on the time and facilities you've got to enable that. Social value. This is becoming more important in tenders now. Social value is built into most tenders. It's about demonstrating your commitment to leave a positive legacy that extends beyond the contract. Now, the social value element, because this could be the decider if things are equal on price. Because normally speaking, from my experience, many organizations know the prices of things, so it's very competitive there. But where can you get an edge? You can get an edge on quality and social value. So, as it says here, that bids account for 10 to 20% of the overall evaluation score. You may be asked to outline your commitments for delivering apprenticeships and other services, taking part in outreach projects, or demonstrate your record on carbon reduction. It could be other things as well. For example, creating local jobs, because my experience, most small businesses, if they get a tender locally, they're more likely to employ local people. If big organizations are doing that, there may be some local jobs, but usually all the management ones and others are often from people outside the area or drafted in from other projects. Social value pledges must be relevant to the work and linked with the buyer's own social value strategy. You could even have a social value policy, but this is becoming more and more important. This is not an academic exercise. It will help you deliver a strong social value proposal. And if it's 10 to 20% of the tender evaluation, then that can make all the difference. Because I've had quite a few bigger organizations on my webinars, and what they've, because they certainly know how to write a bid, so it's not for that part of it that they're focusing on, but it's this part, the social value and social impact. If you look at our YouTube channel, CNT Associates on YouTube, um, we I produced a presentation on what social impact is and some strategies for developing uh, um, uh, a um, a document or a presentation on it. Um, Carbon reduction plans. Following COP27, which was the International Environmental uh, Commission, several government commitments were made with the aim of drastically reducing emissions of methane and carbon throughout the UK. Again, this is not on every tender, but it is certainly more common on larger ones. Um, as well as outlining your net zero commitments, your carbon reduction plan needs to detail your baseline emissions and reduction targets. And then there's a number of what they call scope ones, carbon emissions from sources that your organization utilizes, such as buildings, fleets, and heavy machinery. This is not as difficult as it sounds, because it could be, if you're a very small business, it could be having a green travel plan. It could be having a management or delivery strategy online. It could be reviewing the indirect emissions from the energy that you purchase for your business. And it could be embodied carbon in products and materials within the supply chain, including waste and business travel. So there's a number of areas you can look at there, but uh, not all tenders have this, but it's important that you're at least aware of what they are and some of the things that you can uh, highlight as part of your tenders, say things like green travel, um, uh, recycling, waste management, and business travel by other means where possible, like public transport, etc., etc. Um, you also need, as well as knowing how to write a bid, you need to know something about the valuation criteria. So, because this is what the majority of funding agencies or organizations will use. Um, and they're used to assess how well the bid meets an authority's requirements during a procurement process. And there are two types of evaluation criteria. They are selection criteria and award criteria. Selection criteria focuses on a supplier's past experience and track record, um, and that's used to filter out suitably qualified and experienced suppliers um, uh, who can provide uh, the requirement, whatever it is. And the second is award criteria. That relates to a specific contract, and our forward-looking contracts are normally awarded on the basis of the most economically advantageous tender. That's the meet criteria I mentioned earlier, which means the tender both the best value for money, offering the best value for money, both in terms of price and quality. So, there are a number of elements here. Obviously, price is the most important, but quality and then social value that I've just mentioned. Um, Bit more about evaluation criteria. These are two distinct stages which are normally evaluated separately. For example, if the standard selection questionnaire, or SSQ as it's sometimes called, request evidence of a risk management policy as a minimum standard for selection. Um, for the quality evaluation, may request suppliers demonstrate they will apply their risk management policy to identify and manage any risks associated with the contract. So you've got to demonstrate how your risk management policy can be applied to this specific contract. That's basically what that means. Um, Assessment of a supplier's response to the evaluation criteria is made so information that suppliers provide um, in either the standard selection questionnaire or written bids in the invitation to tender. Um, no decision should be made on previous experience or knowledge with a supplier in the past. So, what that means is they've got to judge things on its merits, even if the current supplier is not hitting its targets or whatever. You can't take that into account, um, or they should do. Whether that happens in practice, I think depends. Um, all questions should have a sound purpose, because remember, this is the funding agencies, should have a sound purpose and help assess supply suitability, and they're underpinned by a defined method of scoring, which can be pre-published to the supplier. So they've got to give you some information about the scoring mechanism. That's what that means. And the question should be relevant to the tender and not designed to uh, cause issues, especially with smaller providers. Selecting providers, in order to select suppliers for tender stage, a standard selection questionnaire is often used, which this is often a kind of prequel to the main tender, which contains a selection of information covering suppliers' legal and organizational status, economic and financial standing, and elements of technical and professional abilities. Um, Additional selection criteria may be added to cover other areas which are relevant to the contract requirements. So it's the one I've just mentioned, like risk management, health and safety, quality assurance, because quality assurance is quite an important issue. This is where many smaller organizations suffer, because now we work for some housing associations, for example, and then they've made it a mandatory requirement that you have to have a quality standard specified by them So we ourselves have got one called Safe Supplier because we had to do that in order to be an organization that tenders through this. That's one of the better ones in terms of cost, actually. There are other ones um, which are much more um, uh, expensive. So you need to think about that. There are other things as well, such as environmental management, diversity and equality, and professional capacity. Um, so this is kind of like a mini tender. I mean, again, they're sometimes called EOIs as well, expressions of interest. And basically, they want some basic information about your organization and its capacity to deliver. So this is quite important, particularly for smaller organizations, because this can often be used to sift out providers. And if you're new to this, you need to be aware of that. If you are successful at SSQ stage, you'll be shortlisted for the next stage and will receive an invitation to tender. So that's stage one is the SSQ or EOI, which is used to sift providers. Um, and then if you get through that first round, but this is not always the case. It's the case some of the times. If you're successful at the SSQ stage, you'll be shortlisted and will receive an invitation to tender for the main contract, whatever it is. Um, the award, the invitation to tender sets out the methodology that will employ in evaluating a supplier's price, a written bid submission, and any presentations in response to the specific specification and the award criteria. Uh, Following this evaluation, a decision will be made on which supplier is awarded the contract. Um, Price and quality are split into two high-level categories to be evaluated separately. Each will be given a maximum percentage score, which will be weighted according to the relative importance placed upon it. So, more important things are like the delivery process, how you will manage the contract, risk assessments, etc., etc. Um, at the end of the evaluation processes, the two percentages will be brought together in the full evaluation model to result in an overall percentage score for each supplier. So that's how it's done. They split the main elements, and then they have percentages for each one, and then this will result in an overall percentage score for each supplier. So obviously the ones with the higher scores are the ones that are going to get the contract. Price versus quality. Um, all procurement activity now has a heavy focus on savings and efficiency. It is common for procurers to start with a 50% price, 38% quality, and 12% social value split as a basis. But this can be changed to a slightly different combination depending on the requirements on objectives of a particular procurement. So, it's not cast in stone that they can kind of play around with this a little bit, but that basic framework is still there. For example, they might increase the social value element a bit more. It could be 15, could be 20%. It really depends what is being delivered. I mean, for example, if it was some kind of construction work, I doubt whether they would do that. If it was working with a particular community or area or a disadvantaged community, they may well do that because obviously in disadvantaged communities, they might want to see more social value, more jobs for people from that area, etc., etc. But there's each tender is different really, and it depends on what the funding agency is trying to procure. Um, Evaluating price. The evaluation of charges will be based on the supplier's response, the requirements um, of a pricing schedule designed for the specific contract. So, price should be based on total cost of the goods or services, the duration of the entire contract, not just uh, the purchase price. So the price has to cover the whole of a contract. It could be, 1, 2, 3 year contract. It depends really. Buyers consider delivery costs, any maintenance and training, energy consumption, downtime, disposal costs, and a more holistic picture of what it will cost to develop this contract over the life of the contract. How a bid's scored, as well as understanding the criteria, you also need to understand how the criteria is scored. You'll likely have very healthy competition. Um, so, how your bid will be assessed is imperative, really. Typically, price scoring mechanism rather. Typically, a certain percentage or number of points are attributed to price, and the supplier's bids are scored against preset criteria, allowing tenders to be ranked in line with the percentages attributed to them. Um, Quality evaluation. Award criteria relating to quality depends upon the nature of the procurement, but these are some of the examples. Technical merit of the goods or services, ability to meet the specification. These are where bigger organizations can often score because if they've got more staff, or at least they put more potential staff in the tender, they can argue that they've got the resources to deliver uh, the specification better than some smaller organizations. Compliance with contractual terms and conditions. Innovative technology. This is an increasingly developed area, using AI and other new technology. Uh, Project plans and methodologies. If your project plans and methodologies are good, then that will significantly boost your uh, chances of winning the tender. Um, and then wider social, economic, and environmental benefits offered to the community. So that is the social value that I've just mentioned, but it can be part of quality as well. Staffing arrangements, training and development. That's kind of straightforward, really. Speed of delivery, maintenance, and support offered. Because if you're running a 3 year contract, and you're not going to start till the end of year one, that could be a problem. But at the same time, you would normally be allowed a setup period. So that could be the first quarter of the delivery of any contract. It really depends on what the service is and how quick the funding agency wants it to be delivered. But just bear that in mind. Quality scoring. Suppliers' responses to these awards criteria will be assessed using the pre-published scoring mechanism within the tender. Um, this is a set of criteria which suppliers must meet in their response to achieve certain scores. The scores for each question are put into maximum percentage scores for each evaluation criteria in the full evaluation model. So they're going to break these down into certain categories and give them scores, basically. I mean, again, they're all different and it depends on what kind of service or product you have to deliver. Um, Standstill. These are new initiatives in contracting and part of the legislation. Um, the standstill period is a defined period between the notice of the contract award decision and the award of the contract. So they'll put this information out there about who's been awarded the contract. And normally you'll be written to if you've got it, fine. If you haven't, um, uh, this is why you have a standstill period. The purpose of the standstill period is to allow unsuccessful tenderers to consider feedback and or submissions, give unsuccessful tenderers the opportunity to ask for further information or call for the review of a decision. You can call for that. Whether it will happen is another matter. These guidelines can be used to notify the successful and unsuccessful tenderers at the start of the standstill period. But you can do that. Um, all suppliers, this is one thing I would recommend as well, ask for feedback. Um, all suppliers tendering for public contracts are entitled to receive feedback from the contracting authority on the award criteria and any subdivisions of that, the reasons for the decision, including the characteristics and advantages of the winning bid, the overall price and quality scores, etc. And your overall price and quality score, and any breakdown of the sub criteria on how you can improve your bid. So I was involved in one recently, and they gave full feedback. They gave the scoring of the organization that won the tender, as well as the scoring of other organizations as well. Some of the other providers wanted to challenge it and did do so. These processes are starting to be implemented now, which is a good thing, whether you're successful or unsuccessful. But always ask for feedback. Here is another element that's fairly new. Again, all suppliers tendering for public contracts have the right to challenge a procurement decision if they have a reason to believe the decision is unfair or not transparent. Your right to challenge applies through the procurement and is not limited to the standstill period. In other words, the award of the contract. You can challenge public procurement provisions at the point you became aware of any issue, and you can also raise concerns during the frequently asked questions period, which goes as part of the tender process. However, there are set time limits on when you can challenge procurement decisions. Um, so, the next steps on this, I've covered quite a lot of ground. Um, Review the presentation, undertake further research, start to develop model applications, and you can always contact us for further support. I'm going to give you some information now about using AI this is the last part of this. Much is currently being discussed about using AI in applications. As things stand at the time of writing, we would suggest it is a certain value in bid application writing, providing you use AI appropriately and ethically. You can use it for strategy development or developing more focused answer questions or developing a specific budget. But much information obtained from AI is of a general or standardized nature, and your own further input is always needed. But these are some of the things that you can do, which will save you time if nothing else. I mean, there's lots of these now. There's many other AI tools that you can use, but this is probably one of the most common ones. So you can use ChatGPT to analyze bid requirements. You can put the tender documents into the platform, extract deadlines, eligibility criteria, scoring mechanisms, and mandatory requirements, or just ask it to summarize the key compliance elements. And there is a prompt that you can use there, summarize the eligibility criteria and scoring methodology for this tender document. Just keep it simple. You'll get the key criteria there. Um, Second is to use AI to write applications or generate draft applications. That's what I would recommend. Um, AI can help create compelling first drafts of executive summaries, method statements, project delivery plans, case studies, etc. Value for money, risk management, and governance frameworks. So you can use it for that, but you need to use a pre-built template structure. Provide AI with detailed prompts, including project details, team info, past results, etc. Focus on outputs that align with local authority or other funding agency priorities like social value, carbon reduction, or community engagement. So again, there's another prompt there. Write a 500 word methodology statement for a 250k public health program in Manchester, um, focused on inequalities among older adults, including our past delivery or similar projects in Birmingham and Liverpool. I mean, these are just examples. You can use many, many other examples. But pricing your answer is a good thing. But what I would recommend is you use your own text first and then use AI to refine it. Um, the third is another obvious one, improve and prove content. All tools like Grammarly or ChatGPT can check for clarity, grammar, and flow, reduce jargon or overly technical language, which is very important, like I said right at the beginning, and offer tone adjustment as well. E.g., make it sound more confident, more community focused, etc., etc. And the fourth one is to use AI to evaluate your response against the scoring criteria. So ask AI to simulate a review based on published scoring guidance. Get feedback on how well your responses answer the question, and address the evaluation criteria. So there's another prompt: score this 1,000 word response based on the tender evaluation criteria, suggest improvements to increase scoring. Very simple, very straightforward, but very effective. So there we go. That's our contact details again. And I'm going to click on to escape and stop the share. And thank you all for bearing with me. And it's just about been 1 hour. So I'm now going to take some questions. Any questions from anybody on this? Linda.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Yes, you too.
I had, well, there was just two questions.
Yeah.
One is the tender only eligible for limited companies, or can charities apply?
Yeah. Charities can apply. You can apply as a sole trader as well.
Okay.
But generally speaking, that as a sole trader, it's much more difficult, because most public authorities and larger organizations uh, want to prefer to contract with companies. I think that's for legal reasons. But there are limitations to that, because if you're offering a very specialist service, like some special health and safety or AI even these days, they might be interested in that. So if you've got a specialism, don't let that put you off. Uh,
Okay.
what was the second question, Linda?
Second question was, is it limited to just like areas of education or health and safety, or can you also bid for things that are in relation to sort of arts and culture?
Oh yes, yeah. You can bid if you go on, if you register with London tender portals and ask for notifications in those areas. Yes, yeah. Most local authorities will have some cultural contracts out there. So yeah, it's well worth uh, looking out for those. I mean, Orit, you apply to some local authorities, don't you? Because you're a cultural organisation.
Yeah, hi guys. Yeah, Greenwich, Thamesmead. Well, it all comes under the London Borough of Greenwich. So yeah, we've just done a community fund application.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, if it's in the public domain, it's usually got to be contracted for. Were you were procurement officers have more leeway is where it's either very specialist services, like I've just mentioned, or smaller value contracts. If you're getting under £30,000, they may have more leeway because they can invite maybe three organizations to tender. In some cases it depends if it's a very urgent service, if it's some very urgent health and safety requirement or something like that. They can award a lower value contract almost immediately, because if there's some kind of public emergency or something, or some very urgent issue, you can do that. So, these regulations do have some flexibility.
Okay, that's really useful to know. Thanks.
Um, any other questions from people?
Please, can you share the details again? The slide for the contact details, please.
Yeah, what we're going to do, Olatwain, is we're going to send a summary presentation of this. It's about 15 slides to everybody. That's why I was just taking a picture to make sure I get everybody in.
Thank you.
To send it out, so you will get that. And you'll also get an offer to buy, as I mentioned earlier, this full presentation, because as you can see, there's a lot packed into this hour. And we will be repeating this again a bit later in the year. But you will get a summary presentation, and you will have the opportunity to purchase the full presentation from us. Brian, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I just wanted to know, what sort of price it would be for the full presentation.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly what the price is. It's £36.
Right, thank you.
Which, as that took quite some time to put together, as you can appreciate, because this is a very big area. So that is a bargain price, to be honest. So yeah, if you email us, we'll sort that out for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for today on this? I can't see any more.
Gary, sorry, one more thing.
Yeah.
You know the percentage of smaller companies and charities being awarded tender opportunities as opposed to bigger ones? I mean, for instance, our size company, do we have a good chance or not?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not aware that there is any statistics. I mean, they may do it on an authority by authority, but national statistics. I might seek that out actually, Ori. That's a good point.
I'd like to know before I spend loads and loads of time trying to bid for things.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to bid for things, you need to do some homework first. You need to try and find out some information about the contract. Generally speaking, you can contact procurement officers. I mean, they may not necessarily say, "Oh, well, should I apply as a small organization?" Because that would be a question they probably wouldn't be able to answer. But certainly, it depends on the value. If it's under £100,000, I would say go for it.
Okay.
Especially under £30,000.
Yeah. I don't need 100 grand. 30 would be
I'm sure
fine.
there's plenty out there that do.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's great.
But from Alexa, what I was, yeah. So yeah, thanks for that, Alexa. There is some information out there. She's just put it in the chat. I think the important thing about this is whatever the outcome is, you have developed an application which you can recycle. You
Yeah.
know, once you've done the groundwork on this, it's for the first time you do it, it could be a lot of legwork. It depends on, the nature and the value of the contract and what documentation you're asked to provide. But once you've done it, because the process, as we've seen, is kind of similar in a lot of different places, so you can utilize that elsewhere. So it's not um, uh, a fruitless exercise if you don't succeed, because it may take you some time before you do succeed, but you can utilize that application to other organizations, and some of it to apply for grants or other funding. So it will be worthwhile. You'll develop your skills as well. And again, these days, because you're able to utilize AI and other online tools, it's a lot easier than it was 5 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but certainly 10 years ago. We've been doing this work for 20 years, and there's a lot of new tools that are around that have really helped us. But what you shouldn't do with AI is just get AI to write a general application, because number one, the funding agency is likely to spot that, because there'll probably be others that are fairly similar. You're better off utilizing um, uh, your own text, and then changing that, redrafting that, using AI to restructure and develop it and price it. That is a much better way to do it, and will give your bid a more unique flavor. Okay, I can now see that people are beginning to leave. So thank you very much for joining us today. Our next presentation is on, if you're on a mailing list, you'll have received an email. It's about funding for health and wellbeing projects, and that's on the 13th of May. That's a big area that we cover, so I would advise those of you who are interested in that to register for it. It is free as well.
Thank you very much for the information, Gary. Great.
Okay, good to talk to you all and see you all today. So I hope to see you again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.